Welcome to another glorious episode of the Put On Waivers Football Show. Dwayne Douglas here with Ryan Holmes. Ryan, how you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. So let's just talk a little bit. I mean, there are some little quick nuggets from the Senior Bowl that just came out. A certain Heisman Trophy winner refused to get on the scale.
Yeah, I heard about that.
During that time period. Is he, the thing with him and somebody like a guy like Deshaun Jackson, who's going to run a lot fast, who's going to run a lot faster. Everybody's saying that he's going to be like a 4.5, a 4.4 guy. Should teams be concerned about how light he is? Like he's going to be pretty like 170, like 168.
Yeah, they should be. I mean, there's not a lot of guys, if you go back over the last 15 or 20 years, that have played at a high level in the NFL at about 170, 175 pounds. I think he knew that. That's why he didn't want to get on the scale. Yeah. I would assume that he's going to try to put on 10 or 15 pounds before the pro day and try to get into the low 180s. Is that going to change what kind of receiver he is? I'm not sure, but you see a lot of the Deshaun Jackson. I don't think they're similar receivers at all. Deshaun Jackson is a straight,
he's fast,
go right post guy. Yeah, that's running in the 4.2s. Smith's probably going to run somewhere 4.45 to 4.50, so it's not going to be blazing. Yeah. But I think it is a concern that he went down there and he's not going to get measured for height or weight. Everything you hear is he's going to be somewhere around 6 foot to 6'1" and somewhere between 165 and 170.
So Smith is not even doing height either?
No, he didn't do height either.
Oh yeah, that's not. I'm not loving that. I mean, there's some things you save for a pro day, but that's kind of like, that's kind of like just draft me. I don't want to. Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I think he fits more in like the Isaac Bruce, Marvin Harrison type comps than I would say than Deshaun Jackson. But his tape is unbelievable. So you still have to weigh what he's done and the production that he's put up.
That's true. I mean, I know some folks are saying that Waddle might go ahead of him, which could possibly, which is possible. So you got to see what these teams need. I'll start with Stafford first because I don't think Rodgers is going anywhere. The Lions and Stafford have come to an agreement that said, "Hey, this guy's got to go." I think that Campbell took the job knowing that. I think everybody who interviewed for that job knew that Stafford was going to be on his way out. Thoughts about the best spot for him? I haven't heard Washington football team. I think maybe they'll just end up just with Cam Newton. But I just think if I'm Washington, like I'm just jumping all over that. I'm not sure what the holdup would be. Maybe he doesn't want to go there. We'll see. But what are your thoughts about Stafford?
I think the best spot for Stafford is Indianapolis for me. Yeah. They have a defense. They have a running game. They have some wide receivers there. If they bring Hilton back, they have tight ends. So it's a plug and play. It's a playoff team that gives them a chance to do something in the AFC. Now, I don't know if they're good enough to beat the Chiefs or the Bills, but that would be my spot for him, or San Francisco, somewhere that if you add a quarterback into the mix, you have everything else around you. Yeah. Washington, I'd question the offensive line. They have a young running back. I don't know if they have the weapons at tight end or out wide those other teams have.
Yeah, I mean, I do. Niners makes a lot of sense. It sounds like the Niners really, if they can get rid of Jimmy, they're going to try to get rid of Jimmy. I mean, if they can
upgrade at all.
Yeah, they upgrade there because to be honest, you can't. Your best of availability is your ability to be on the field, and that ability to not be on the field is just him. He's just always hurt. I mean, football is a tough game, but he's always hurt. There's no question about it. It's tough to deal with that part.
Definitely. I agree with you on Rodgers, though. I don't think he's going
anywhere. Yeah, I don't even want to waste words. Like he's not going anywhere. He was frustrated after a loss. He sees, a guy like Brady who did not play as well as he did. I mean, people are just going to gloss over the fact that he threw the 3 picks, could have threw a 4th one at the end of the first half. I mean, I'm not saying that, he didn't make some plays in the game. Obviously, Brady did some things in the game that helped the Bucs win, but I mean, he did some of those picks were really just just not good plays, especially the one where they had a free runner, Milano, and then not Milano, a free runner right at him, and he just threw it up for grabs where he could have just take the sack and held onto the football.
I agree. I don't think Brady played a great game in the second half by any stretch of the imagination. The defense bailed him out there. And then Brady made the plays in the late fourth quarter when they needed a first down, a couple throws, got the pass interference, and the rest is history.
Kevin King, did he go out the night before? I mean, that was just like one of the worst performances I've seen before. Like, when Scotty Miller's in the game, like he's not this slot guy who doesn't have the ability to get deep. Like, how does he get behind him at the end of the half? That was the death blow of the whole game in my mind.
No, it was. That reminded me a lot of the Raiders against the Jets when Ruggs got deep at the end of the game. Like, what defense are they in? It was either cover 1 or cover 3, so he had man coverage on the outside. And based on the split of the wide receiver, if he wants to run a 6-yard out from that condensed split, go ahead and let him do it. They don't have any timeouts. If he gets out of bounds, they kick a field goal, great. But you got to guard the sidelines, but you absolutely can't let anyone get past you in that situation, especially when you don't have safety help. So he just got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He's peeking into the backfield, and Miller ran right by him. Same thing happened to the Raiders too. Miller did that right before half.
It was horrible. And then even if I don't know if you've seen the picture of him giving up the first touchdown to Mike Evans, and the way he timed his jump, like it's almost like he jumped when Brady had to like threw the ball like out of his hand. Like he was nowhere near Mike Evans on the play. Just a bad day by him. The Packers, that's a tough one to deal with. Obviously the decision, and we've seen that decision a lot watching the Raiders, where you're in field goal range, it's fourth down, you're in that goal to goal situation. And, we for the Raiders, you see Carlson come out there, they kick the field goal. It's, they don't get a stop. Again, King gets the pass interference. What are your thoughts about that decision? I think it's pretty obvious that they probably should have went for it.
Yeah, I was, to be honest, I was driving at that point in the game. I was in my car listening to it on the radio. When I heard they're bringing out the kicker, I almost pulled over to the side of the road. I was in shock. Like, you're down 8. You're on the 8-yard line. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback who's going to win the MVP, and you take the ball out of his hands to kick a field goal. They were already lucky once they got an onside kick, but at that point, they're not getting the ball back. If you give it back to Brady with 2 minutes left, even though you have the 3 timeouts, and the lucky part, or the good part for Tampa Bay, is they got the ball on the right side of the 2-minute warning. They threw the ball on first down and got 9 yards because the clock was just got stopped no matter what. So
and then jumped off
I don't know what Lefluer was thinking. That was a terrible decision.
Yeah, I mean the decision was crazy. It kind of made no sense, and I also hated the fact that they went for 2 early in the early in the game. I go for 2 when it's your desperation fourth quarter.
I would never go for 2 until it's absolutely halfway through the fourth quarter, because what that did, it was 28-23. If you kick the field goal, you're down 4. So if Tampa goes down and kicks a field goal, you're still within 7. By not getting the 2-point conversion, if they go down and kick a field goal, you're down 8. So you're not helping yourself at all. And then, the whole going for 2 thing, I think it's gotten out of hand. Like, teams are just doing it at any point in the game, in the first quarter, second quarter. It's like, you don't need to do that. You're chasing points the whole game if you don't get it.
Exactly. I mean, and 2, I got to say, unfortunately what probably drives Aaron Rodgers, up the wall is the fact that he put the ball right in the chest of the receiver as well.
Yeah, the guy dropped it.
He dropped it. So, I mean, he's not working with the same, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans crew. It's Devontae Parker, and that's it. So, I mean, at some point, I think they have to. I've even heard stuff where they might, let go of Jordan Love, or try to get some value for Jordan Love, because I just feel like, it's just a bad. It just didn't make any sense. And that receiver draft to not draft a receiver, it just didn't make any sense.
I don't think they're going to move on from Love yet. Unless he was just terrible in practice this year, which we haven't heard a lot of. It'd be hard to justify using a first-round pick on a quarterback, having 5 years of control, and just moving on after 1 year when you didn't take a snap. So I would expect him back in Green Bay along with Aaron Rodgers.
We'll see what happens in Green Bay, but I definitely would not expect him to be gone. Like I think that's like, that's, you can Photoshop whatever you want. It's definitely not, you can spend all the time you want, put him in all these different uniforms. He's not going anywhere. I guess it made little waves in Raider Nation when Vic Tafur said that it was so basically what he said was that he doesn't know if Nelson Aguilar really had the best time in Las Vegas. That he didn't know if he was going to be coming back.
It was an interesting. I caught that comment online. I had some of the same questions. Like you didn't hear anything throughout the year. They basically revitalized his career. He had a good connection with Carr. To hear that, he didn't have a good time, there's something going on behind the scenes. I'm very curious to what's going to be in that article once Vic puts it out.
And I think he did. I think Vic did a little bit of a, listen, he wants people to read his stuff. So I mean, you put a little teaser out there for an upcoming story, and I think people will be out there to read it anyway. But is it like, I mean, you made the point too, like last week, like, is it really this? I mean, the Raiders have lost for so many years that it's anything they do that fans don't like is going to seem like the sky is falling, right? Like,
yeah, I would argue at this point, it's probably a higher likelihood that Aguilar's in a Packers uniform next year than he is in a Raiders uniform.
It would make sense.
Just going from hunch, like he would fit in well over there. They need another receiver. My only guess as to where the angle Vic's coming from is there had to be something going on behind the scenes. It could be something between Nelly and Gruden. It could be Nelly knows that he might be phased out a little bit next year if Ruggs and Edwards are going to get more targets, or there's something going on where Aguilar knows that he's not going to play as big of a role next year as he did this year.
Yeah, and to me, you mentioned me at the point like he did. It is when you break down the number of catches, it's three. It is three catches a game. That could be, like I think that they could spread that around a little bit more. And I think at that point, do you think Tyrell Williams on an incentive-laden deal could be somebody who comes back with the Raiders?
Yeah, I made this argument, or I tried to on Twitter about a week ago. Yeah. Would you rather have Aguilar at $11 million over a 3 or 4 year deal, or would you take Ty Williams back on a 1 year, like $2 or $3 million prove it deal? Now I don't know if he would take that. I would rather have Williams just because of the body type, and he gives you more in the red zone, some of those slant routes. He's a bigger body, and he just fits better in the composition of the overall wide receiver room. Right now they have, and I've said, if they go to 11 personnel in the red zone, you have Aguilar, Ruggs, and Renfrow. None of those guys are going to be effective in the red zone. They're going to need to create space, and now you're in a condensed area, and you can't throw slants to any of those guys in the red zone.
No,
or fades.
And like you look at it. I mean, people forget like his first didn't he have a touchdown with the Raiders the first 6 games he played?
It was 5 or 6. Yeah, he came out of the gates hot.
It came out of the gate. So like I mean, before his feet got on fire, he was doing really good as far as red zone targets and making big plays as well too. So, listen, I mean, I like Nelly, but I also can't act like Nelly is Jerry Rice either. Like we have to take a deep breath as far as that goes. The Chiefs beat the Bills. It was like watching two cars, and one car is a Maserati, the other car is a Yugo. I mean, it was no match as far as that goes. I did not like the consistently kicking field goals as well. I know he was talking about a moral victory, but you're playing that team. You know how the price of admission is. You're going to go for a lot of 4th downs, and you got to score touchdowns.
You're in the AFC Championship game. I don't want to hear about moral victories. You're trying to get to the Super Bowl. So,
I like the coach. I'm just saying. I agree.
I mean, you have Brian Dable, who all year has dialed up all kinds of creative stuff. There's got to be something in the bag of tricks or some plays to call on 4th and 3 or 4th and 2 or 4th and 5. Just you got to give them a chance, and especially with their defense. Their defense hasn't been as good this year as it was last year. So there are some holes in that Bills defense, and I kind of understand trying to keep it close to the 4th quarter and hope something goes your way, but you got to do whatever you can. They may not be in another AFC Championship game for another 20 years. Who knows?
You never people have this idea that this whole world I go back to Marino when Marino got there, when he was a baby in the league, and he never got back again. So so at some point, if you got a chance to go to the Super Bowl, you got to go get it.
Yeah, just look at the AFC, the quarterbacks that are in that conference. That there's no guarantee that Josh Allen's going to get there. You have Mahomes.
No.
You might have Stafford or somebody in Indianapolis that's going to come in there. You never know what's going to happen with Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. Like, you can go down the list. Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
Like, you get your chance, you got to go for it. I would rather go in there and throw the ball on 4th down and try to score touchdowns and lose the game by 25 or 30 than keep kicking field goals and lose the game by 15 or 20. Like, what's the difference?
And when you look at the AFC that could also include Stafford and Watson going to Miami or New York. So that could be, it's even crazier to think about that as far as that goes. The Texans still were a mess. We know about that. Josh McCown getting an opportunity to actually interview for a job. I don't even know how that makes any sense whatsoever.
I don't understand that at all.
I mean, that is just that just screams. I guess Leslie Frazier got an interview as well, or is going to get an interview. He's at some point I was like, I thought he was a guy who was going to stay only because of the contract, but they're going to trade this guy. They're going to trade Deshaun Watson. I mean, he's getting traded.
It looks that way at this point. I wouldn't do it personally, but to go to interview Josh McCown, like he was the backup quarterback for the last couple of weeks of the season. If you're a veteran on that team with any experience in this league, what are you thinking when you hear that? And Deshaun Watson's like, my backup, the guy that we signed for the last couple of weeks that was coaching high school football with his kids, like that's going to be my head coach. I know McCown's well respected around the league, but they make that hire.
No.
Deshaun's gone for sure. And I'm not even sure at this point if they hired Bieniemy that he'd be back.
No, yeah. I guess the thing that everybody's saying now is the fact that even if it was, even if they did hire Bieniemy and he wants out regardless of who the coach is.
Like, I think it's an ownership issue at this point.
Yeah, and the owners aren't going anywhere. So, I mean, they're not going anywhere. And then they're an absolute mess. They're just – I just don't know what's going on there. I mean, they're, it's kind of crazy. Also, in some other news, Goff is, they didn't have, Les Snead didn't have the kindest words for his franchise quarterback going there. I mean, that's his guy. He traded up to go get him, all this stuff like that. Thoughts of, and I think Wolford, the guy from the AFF, the coach McVay was disappointed that he got hurt. He wanted to see that guy play in the playoffs.
Yeah, just to hear him say the quarterback at the moment. Anytime you hear at the moment, that's not good.
No,
and. You saw they started Wolford against Seattle when Goff clearly could have played and did end up playing after Wolford got hurt. So I think what would happen if they won that game and they went to Green Bay? I would imagine at this point Wolford would have started that game, not Goff. Yeah. And I took a quick look at the cap numbers. If they can't cut him, it's a $65 million cap hit. That's a third of the cap for next year. They can't if they cut him if they do a June 1st designation, it's still a $50 million cap hit. If they trade him, it's only $22 million, but no one's going to trade for that contract. So you hear a lot of it's going to be an open quarterback competition, but then they can't bring anyone in that makes any money. So it's either a rookie or a Wolford fighting with Goff. So Goff's going to be on that team next year regardless. So I don't know why the organization's coming out and saying what they are about him. He's going to be a Ram in 2021.
And what was I don't even like. They have no options besides that. So I'm not sure why they even did that. I mean, it makes no sense what's going on there as far as that goes. I mean, to their credit, they're in their defense and, McVay's coaching and, the players love him and everything like that. Everything. But like, as far as like how everything is moving, it just looks like it's not moving in the right direction. And also also hearing stuff like he's not the hardest worker in the building, which is like which you kind of have to be, right?
You have to be at that point with the kind of money he's making. the other thing, you look around at Sean McVay and the Rams, every single assistant coach on that team for the last 2 years is gone. They've been hired by every other team in the league. So it'll be interesting to see what they do as far as offensive coordinator, passing game coordinator, quarterback coach. They lost their defensive coordinator. They brought in Raheem Morris. They just lost their secondary coach. So if I want to get a job in the NFL, I'm calling Sean McVay, because if you're just around him in the building, you're getting an offer.
Yeah, I mean, people are just going nuts. They're going nuts for him. I mean, his coaching tree is going to be, by the time he's like 40 years old, he's going to have like the Andy Reid coaching tree. So it's unbelievable. Jason Witten retired. I know Raider fans was like so happy that he's retiring.
I was really happy when I saw that it's Foster Moreau season finally.
Dude, man, I can't even imagine. There's certain things I couldn't imagine. I could not imagine watching the film of Devin White and Cleveland Farrell and then drafting Cleveland Farrell. Even if I need a defensive end, I'll get a Frosty Rucker type just to hold me over so I can draft one. I mean, you just can't make that move.
No.
It just makes no sense. But yeah, so he's gone. I know. And what is in the mind all season of Foster Moreau? What I could not even imagine losing snaps to that dude.
To a guy that can't run at all. He wasn't even a good blocker. We're looking at the film and the ultimate.
Oh, he got blown up.
Run blocking was not good. Pass blocking, he had a couple decent blocks, but overall didn't really hold up. There was no reason to have him on the field. Like, he didn't do anything. They tried to use him in the red zone. Obviously, Gruden brought him in to try to help fix the red zone issues. That didn't work. So you're trying to run 11 personnel, or if you decide to go 2 tight ends and you're running Witten out there, and then the other guys, other than Waller, none of those guys are threats other than Renfro, if he can wiggle open over the middle. But there's a reason why the red zone wasn't very good. And you throw in the fact they couldn't run the ball inside the 10 either. But Jason Witten, great career. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. He might be, just because of the longevity and the numbers he put at the tight end. But I could very well see him back as the tight ends coach, because Gruden clearly has a high affection for him.
We can't. I mean, you cannot. You just can't. Like, at what point? I mean, at what point do you draw a line? You got to draw a line somewhere, dude. This is like the Gunther thing. Like, I mean, like get somebody who's young and hungry to be that coach. Like, you can't keep doing this. Like, the Raiders organization can't be a John Gruden best friends party. It
clearly is at this point. So
I mean, like what qualifications does he have to be because he played? A lot of times, guys who played for a long period of time are not great coaches.
No, I agree with that. I'm not sure that they could keep him around. I've heard people say, like, well, we can't lose Frank Smith because of the development with Waller. At this point, Waller is great. He's elite. Doesn't matter who the coach is. Waller's still going to be elite. So I like you said, I'd like to see get a younger guy in there that might be able to transition into an offensive coordinator position in a couple of years and take over for Greg Olson. But all signs point towards Jason Witten. They haven't filled that spot. It's been open now for about a week. You haven't heard anybody interviewing. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that is what happens.
And then, one of the biggest things is we're sitting here struggling in the red zone, and Foster Moreau has how many touchdowns in his career? I mean, in his first rookie year, like 5 or 6. Like, I mean, the guy was great at high pointing the ball as he did in Indianapolis his rookie year, and then in those low point in the ball I talk about as well, where he can where it's a little small window, Carr can just fit that in, and it's either him or it's an incompletion. Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That's absolutely crazy. I just can't. If you're friends with John, you'll get paid. We know that much. Raiders pick 17th. I think you have some stuff for some of the fans who are going to be, we're talking about guys who are realistically going to be there at 17 for the Raiders. I think you got some defensive names that we can talk about, Ryan.
Absolutely. I think they need help at all 3 levels. I'm not going to go through the Micah Parsons or the Patrick Surtain the seconds. I think those guys will be off the board. Ideally, this team needs help on the defensive line. So if you go straight to the interior defensive line in this draft it's not a lot of depth. There's not a lot at the top either. So you're looking at Christian Barmore, out of Alabama. Now he's a bigger three technique. He's about 6'5", 315. Typically you see those guys somewhere 6'2", 6'3", around 300 to 310 pounds. So he's a little bigger in the britches. He can hold up against the run. He might lose a little bit of pass rush, but he's a guy at 17 could add some size to the interior. I'm not sure I'd take him at 17. For me, that's more of a trade down somewhere in the mid 20s and try to recoup a pick in the second or third round, probably get a third rounder to move down. But ultimately, I think where they need to go is on the edge and go find that Leo. There's a lot of 3-4 players, that outside linebackers in this draft that could fit in and play that Leo spot. A perfect fit is Joseph Asai out of Texas. He's exactly what the Leo position is. He's an outside linebacker that's a little bit bigger. He can hold the edge in the run. He's great chasing plays down from behind. He's got some pass rush ability. He's an all-out motor. I think Gus Bradley's going to fall in love with him when he watches the video. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Raiders take him at 17 or possibly trade down 4 or 5 picks and pick him up in the early 20s. Everywhere you see, he'd fit in perfect in like Baltimore or Pittsburgh, like one of those guys. But if you threw him in the mix, he could play the Sam linebacker on early downs, slide down and rush off the edge on third down, and then eventually move into a full-time Leo position in a year or two when they decide what they're going to do long-term with Crosby or Farrell. And another guy, my personal favorite in the draft, is Zaven Collins, the linebacker out of Tulsa. He brings a lot of versatility to the front seven. He's a bigger guy. He's about 6'4", 260. But he runs and plays. He has movement skills of a guy much smaller, somewhere in the 225, 230 range. This guy's really good in coverage. He can hold the edge. He can rush. He's a guy that I think could come in and play Sam linebacker. He could slide down and rush out of the Leo position. He could be a full-time Leo. And ultimately, I think he could play middle linebacker as well in a couple of years if that's something that they decide to do. So he's a guy, no matter what the scheme is, there's a place on the field for him. And ultimately, I would rush him, and I'd use him as Sam linebacker, rush him a little bit. I'd use him in some coverage, and then 2 or 3 years down the line, he could slide into middle linebacker and take over there because he has everything you're looking for in a linebacker. A lot of teams are concerned about the size at 260 in today's game, but you throw the film on, and this guy moves really well around the field. The only other position I would take a kind of a look at, I've seen the Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah out of Notre Dame. I don't think he fits on this team. He's a will linebacker. He can't play Sam. He's not going to play the Leo. And you have Corey Littleton. Potentially you have Nicholas Monroe if you bring him back. You have Javen White. You have enough guys to fill that position. And then the Raiders actually signed a guy today who was on the practice squad with the Chargers the last year that fits in as the will linebacker. So I wouldn't roll the dice there. Trayvon Moehrig, a safety out of TCU, is another guy. He's another guy that I would target in a potential trade down. He's probably the best safety in the draft. He can play single high. He's a perfect fit for cover 3. Can play cover 1. He's got range. He's had a lot of pass breakups and interceptions in his college career. Tackling's a little inconsistent in the open field, but that's something he can get better at. But he has good size at 6'2", about 205. So I'd look at one of those guys, Christian Barrymore, if you need an interior guy, Trayvon Moehrig if you need a safety, and then potentially if you're looking to fill the Sam linebacker or Leo position, you have Zaven Collins and Joseph Asai. I think all 4 of those players will be on the board when the Raiders pick.
Yeah, and I think Asmar Balil, is that the looking
the
for
guy from Georgia?
The guy from this is the guy who the Raiders just signed who who was from the Chargers. So I mean, listen, a guy you're probably familiar with. They had some players at linebacker, so I'm not sure how much he played, but Gus Bradley bringing some familiarity over from the Chargers, which makes a lot of sense as far as that goes. I just have a feeling that they're going to really go ham in free agency. I mean, I know that it's going to take some pieces being cut, but they're gonna fill some of these needs.
At right tackle and be forced to take one in the first or second round. They clearly need to take one at some point, regardless. But who knows? Knowing John Gruden, he's going to do whatever he can to get the offense fixed before.
He's always going to do the offense first. But so you feel like Trey Brown's going to be back?
I do. I think I think Richie Incognito's gone. I think they're going to have Gabe Jackson maybe take a pay cut a little bit to try to save a little bit of money there. And I could see them going to Trent Brown and asking him, instead of 14 million, maybe going down to 10 and moving about 4 million into incentives based on being active on game days, just to try to keep him in shape or have some weight clauses so he can earn that money back.
Yeah.
But it's so tough. I mean, when he plays, he made the Pro Bowl last year in 11 games. So
yeah, he's good.
I don't think he was ever 100% this year watching the film. He was clearly hampered.
I mean,
with the calf early.
Came in 400 pounds too.
He looked big.
He looked big. I mean, especially when pictures sometimes can be funny, but you look at the pictures from New England to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not even close as far as that goes. But anyway, we'll roll over to the tackles anyway. Let's see here what we got for tackles as far as that goes. So we have the first one is Rashawn Slater. I'm not sure if he's going to be around, but like I would just in a couple of mock drafts, I see him getting picked the pick before or pick after the Raiders. Basically, you just throw on the tape of him versus Chase Young, Ohio State, Northwestern, and he's the guy. Like he's no question about it. He has the hand placement. He can move people. He's very talented in pass in pass protection. He can do all those things. You can just put him in there for 10 years. You're good to go. Your quarterback is going to feel really good about his ability. I mean, if he's doing it against Chase, then yeah. I mean, who else can he really, nobody really emulates more of an NFL style pass rusher than he did when he was in college at Ohio State. He just did a great job against him in that game. And just looking at it, I mean, it's little tweaks here and there, but you get him with an NFL head coach, a really good O-line coach. The guy has star written all over him as far as that goes. Alijah Vera Tucker from SC. I got the SC guy in there. Like him. Not a great. I'll start off with the things that I'm worried about with him. Not a 2-year starter. Not necessarily depending on what scheme you play. I mean, if you're doing more zone reads, he might not be the best at that. It might be better at power. Could be a reach if you're going to go for mid first round, and not the best athlete. Like he's not the best athlete. I mean, and you and I both know.
I think he's a guard, honestly, at the next level.
Probably. Balance, versatility. He doesn't really get flustered. Played against really good competition. Solid anchor. And also played against really good competition out there in the Pac-12. But like you said, he did play left tackle, but you could slide him in the guard in the National Football League, no problem.
I think it's a deep draft at the tackle position. I don't think, even if they don't have Trent Brown, I don't think they need to go there in the first round. They need some impact players on defense, and you got to, at some point, I think they have to trust Tom Cable to get, like what he did with Colton Miller. We'll pass on the Brandon Parker discussion for now, but you could get a guy in the second or third round. It seems like it's pretty deep there. There's some guys with some size. There's a guy at Mississippi State at the Senior Bowl that measured in at like 6'7", with a huge wingspan. He was like 330 pounds. He looked like a monster. There's that kid out of North Dakota State, Dylan Rednitz or something like that, seems to be doing pretty well down at the Senior Bowl. And it just seems like there's probably going to be anywhere from 5 to 6 tackles go in the first round, and probably somewhere north 10 to 12 in the top 2 rounds. So they're going to be able to get a guy in the second round. I just think they really need to focus on getting a defensive playmaker at any of the 3 levels in the first round.
Question: if Trent Brown's money is not coming off the books, where do they trim some fat on that salary cap so they can improve that defense? Because you need some veteran leaderships. You can't just say, hey, we're playing cover 3 with the same squad as last year.
You got to move on from Joyner. I think Mariota, and that it's going to come down to do they feel like bringing Mariota back at $10 million is worth it? Because if you ask me, do you want to pay the backup quarterback $10 million, or do you want to pay Trent Brown $14 million? Give me Trent Brown every day of the week. I think Incognito is about $6.5 million. Obviously, Tyrell Williams is $11 million. And then if it's going to come down to this. If they keep Trent Brown, I expect they ask Gabe Jackson to take a pay cut at some point, whether he wants to or not. You can't pay Gabe Jackson $9-10 million a year. He's just not that kind of player. He's been overpaid for 2 or 3 years now. If you could get him at at a $6 million rate, save $3 or $4 million there, I'm fine with that. I'm just not. I don't want to pay interior guys. It's much harder to find a tackle than it is a guard. Yeah. So I don't know why the Raiders are paying a guard. This will be his 3rd year at that salary too, a little over $9 million.
Was that a salary that was given to him by Reggie McKenzie?
Yes. So when it came down to it, if you go back, that's the same draft as Carr and Mack. Mack had a 5th-year option because he was a first rounder. The other 2 guys had 4-year contracts. So it came down to Reggie McKenzie paid Gabe Jackson before he could have extended Khalil Mack, and then obviously they paid Carr, and then Mack came in 3rd. So if you think back on it, like they extended a guard before they even decided, hey, let's try to get something done with Khalil. Instead
of the transcendent defensive end who could have been one of the best defensive players in the history of the franchise.
Just go look around. I'm watching the games last week and look at the guards on these teams. John Feliciano. Who did Kansas City have out there? They had 2 guys I've never even heard of. They were like 7th rounders and undrafted.
Wisniewski doesn't still play, does he? For the Chiefs?
I think he did.
He played in that game though. I think somebody got hurt. So I mean you gotta if you're gonna maybe mess around with the offensive line, you do it at guard, right? You don't do it at
absolutely
do it at guard. So as far as that
center
goes.
Make sure you have the center, make sure you have the tackles, and then fill in at the guards. And if you look at the Chiefs, they're going to roll into the Super Bowl. I saw their projected starting line. Fisher out. None of those guys, most of them are 7th rounders or undrafted guys, and they're going to be starting in the Super Bowl. So,
do you think that you're going to see a lot of them trying to run the football and screens and stuff like that to try to, compensate for the fact that they don't have that offensive line the way they want it?
I don't think so. I think Andy Reid's going to come out and be aggressive.
Yeah.
They did it the first time against him. Tyreek Hill had 200 yards in the first quarter, the first time they played this year. And then, I think we talked about the game last week. I was like, they're going to play too high. They're going to dare him to run. And then Travis Kelce's going to eat over the middle of the field because you can't cover Hill and Kelce playing that defense. That's exactly what happened. Kelce went off. So I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I think Levante David, Devin White match up a little bit better on the inside against Kelce.
Yeah.
They're going to have to double Tyreek Hill somehow and then see what happens. But I don't expect Andy Reid to just hand the ball off. He has Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Yeah. If I'm going to lose that game, I'm going down with Mahomes throwing the ball 40 to 50 times.
Yeah, you're going to have to. You're going to have to, no question about it. The thing that really bothered me the most is that in the Bucs game against the Packers, people acted like, Shaq Barrett didn't even do anything in this game. It was all Brady. I mean, he basically had a little bit of that. I call it that little Lawrence Taylor juice he must have drank before the game because he was a monster in this ball game.
He's a perfect fit for the Leo too. I just don't know if the Raiders are going to be in at what he's going to want. He's going to want
guaranteed money is going to be huge.
He's going to want somewhere 18 to 20 million. That's what he's playing on a franchise tag from last year. So I think he's going to hit the market. I just don't know if the Raiders will be in play at that number. And I don't think I would give him that number based on he was good last year. I think he had 19.5 sacks. This year was somewhere around 7 or 8. Is he a transcendent defensive end at $20 million a year? I don't think he's that. I think he's a guy that can bring in and give you 10 or 12 sacks and give you some pressures. So we'll see. But he had a really good game. JPP had a good game. Clearly, Devin White was all over the place. So they did what we thought they would do.
Yeah, and if I tell you, man, how could you? And schematically, if you're Lefluer, how could you not chip or keep somebody in? Why are you going empty backfield? There were 2 or 3. There were I'm watching it on film. It's 4 or 5 plays where if Rodgers just had one more second, it's a touchdown because the guy covering Devontae Adams is 2 yards behind him. He already crossed his face, is gone. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get
It was interesting. They left that left tackle on an island most of the day against those two pass rushers, and it was like their third or fourth string guy because they had injuries.
Yeah,
So
made no sense. I
yeah,
get
I
it.
didn't understand that one.
I get it. It's a one-on-one league, but you can't do stuff like that. You can't do stuff like that as far as that goes. I got let's see, the edge. Edge costs money. I mean, if you want an edge player, you gotta pay for it.
Absolutely.
So absolutely. So I mean, and I wouldn't take a dime less from any of these guys. You know, who we got here? We got. I mean, Raider fans have been talking
To get a
about
difference maker, it's going to be
$20.
north of 14, 15 million or higher.
Yeah,
for any of these guys.
all of them are making 16, and the top guys are making 16 million a year. Judon, Ingram, Bud Dupree's making 15. Shaq Barrett's making 15. So what would Yannick Ngakoue want? I mean, he's gonna want he's gonna want big money. I mean,
he took a pay cut to go to Minnesota this year too, so he left some money on the table.
Yeah, I mean, because I think he went to a couple of teams who he thought maybe he could have won something, so he wanted to take a little pay cut as far as that goes.
The only guy I'm giving that amount of money to in this free agent class is Leonard Williams, just because he plays on the interior.
Yeah,
if you wait long enough, you could get one of these edge guys that could play the Leo position for a little bit less, because there's going to be a lot of them on the market, and they're not all getting 17, 18, 19 million dollars. Yeah. You just got to be okay with the depth there. If you end up with a Matt Judon at $10 million a year, you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
But it's going to be someone that has to be able to play. I think they're going to try to work Crosby in initially at the Leo, even though he doesn't fit there, just to get him on the field. And then whoever that edge guy is going to be in nickel has to be the Sam linebacker too. So the good news is there's a lot of guys out there to fill those roles. Or you just do it in the draft with Osai or Collins, or the guy from Georgia, Alijah, would fit. I wouldn't take him at 17. That's more of a trade down option too, but he would fit in that position.
Let's just say Aguilar goes to Rams, Packers, whoever, he's out. They're going forward with Williams, Ruggs, Brian Edwards, and
Renfro.
Yeah. And that's it. Are they gonna dip their toes in the sea, with some of these veteran receivers to see if is there anything out here?
I don't anticipate him doing that because it's going to be cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
To be able to spend the money. Now, if one of those guys wants to do a 1-year deal and hope the salary cap's going to go back up from 175, 180 up over north of 200 next year, and wants to bet on themselves in a 1-year contract, potentially I could see Gruden doing that. I don't see them signing a long-term deal and with a lot of guaranteed money and being on the books with one of these receivers, because they have to figure out what they have in Ruggs and Edwards in the next 2 seasons.
That's not even.
They have to.
They have to. You invested too much on it, and then you look at around the league. A lot of these guys are playing really good football around the league, so it makes you look kind of crazy. I didn't realize that Ndamukong Suh plays 73% of the snaps there, and with the Buccaneers, he's having a really good year. Vita Vea, what a difference. I mean, you see him it's like the center. There was not even a human being. He was just like a paperweight. He was just pushing him back into the pocket like it was nothing. That guy is a monster.
He's a guy that would have fit with the Raiders in that draft. I want to say he went 10th or 11th that year. That was what year was that? That was about 3 years ago. I'm trying to remember who the Raiders took. He went off the board right before the Raiders picked.
Yeah.
So
that guy.
Maybe it was the Colton Miller year. Maybe it was Colton Miller when they traded down and got Miller.
Man, that guy was tough. He's tough to watch. He's tough to deal with. As far as interior goes, the only big guy you're giving money to is Leonard Williams. Let's just say he's not there. Anybody else that kind of you get in this free agent class that you say, hey, that would be a guy who makes sense?
It's tough. Maybe not at those numbers. Someone more in the $6, $7, $8 million range. Shelby Harris, ex-Raider.
Yeah, that makes sense. Shelby
Dalvin
Harris
Tomlinson as a one technique from the Giants. Really good run defender with a little bit of pass rush. But I also anticipate a lot of these teams are going to cut guys to get under the cap. So you're going to see some veterans show up on the market here that aren't out there now.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of guys. The Saints are going to have to release about 15 guys just to get to the salary cap number, let alone sign anybody.
So was it the GM of the Saints said that they're not rebuilding. So
it'll be interesting to see their roster because they're $103 million over the cap, and they don't have a lot of guys with no dead money. So they don't have options like the Raiders do to release 5 or 6 guys and clear up $50 million. They don't have that. So I don't know how they're going to do it.
I mean, I don't see how they're gonna. I don't know what they're gonna do, but I mean, they can't even be physically even in the market for a Stafford or anybody like that to replace. I mean, it has to be Jameis Winston on a low number.
It's got to be Winston at about $5 or $6 million with a ton of incentives, and Taysom Hill doing his thing.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Can't think of anything else as far as that goes. Anything else you want to run through before we call it a day?
No, I think that's good. We'll talk about the Super Bowl a little bit more next week as we get closer to it.
Yeah, the bye week was the Raiders were the last. That was the last Super Bowl to not have a bye week. I think it was.
There was probably one. I think there was one in between.
One between that.
There was one within the last 5 or 6 years. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But there's only 1 week. But I don't really like the 2 weeks. I'd rather just play the game and get going. I don't know. Actually, I would prefer, and this is more of a league issue. I've always wondered what the league would look like if they went the draft and then free agency. I don't like having free agency before the draft because then it kind of pigeonholes you in a certain direction.
I think
if the Raiders could do the draft and then free agency, I think it'd be better.
I think that would be good. I think the current players would be like, no.
Yeah, because then they wouldn't get paid.
Yes, exactly. They want to get paid first. Let the rookies work. Well, at least they did that. And at least they got rid of Jamarcus Russell deals and all the other Sam Bradford, all those deals like that. They don't exist anymore. Thank God, because those guys should not get paid before.
Could you imagine what the Cleveland Farrell contract would be if that was 10 years ago? They would have given him about $40 million guaranteed and like $60 million on a contract for 4 or 5 years. I try not to get personal about it, because it's not his fault he got drafted where he is. Yeah, it's just a bad move. I just don't understand how you it makes you wonder what they're gonna does anybody in the room really have say in that room? Because besides Gruden, I just don't think anybody does. It was interesting to read, Mike Mayock talked to a couple of beat writers at the Senior Bowl yesterday, reading through some of his comments, and he said, well, the players on defense we drafted have to play better. Well, why are we blaming the players on defense? We overdrafted them. Yeah, exactly. You overdrafted Arnett. You overdrafted Farrell. So you can't blame them for not being Pro Bowlers. No one ever said they were going to be those types of players. And the Raiders reached for both of them. Exactly. Nobody had a conversation that said, hey, in no mock draft did I see Cleveland Farrell at 4. You probably saw it the day after the championship game when he did pretty well against Jonah Williams, who's turned out to do basically nothing with the Bengals. And then every week that went by, he just kept sliding down and down. But I found that a little weird that Mayock would say that, they just need to play better. Well, you should have drafted better players in those spots. Yeah, that's crazy. That's just my opinion. I like both of those guys for what they are. I just don't think either one of them's a difference maker. Yeah, me too. This whole idea that the Packers were going to pick him or somebody, he wasn't going to be there. So I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Listen, we're put on waivers, NFL. We'll be right back. We'll be back next week. Ryan, thanks for joining us again, man. Thank you. Talk to you next week. Yeah, take care. Bye.